Welcome to This Explainer. Today, we are going on a seriously fascinating journey that connects the ancient life or death struggles of human evolution right directly to the psychology of your modern relationships. We're going to look at the deep science behind why we love, why we hurt, and how our brains are quite literally hardwired for connection. So let's just dive right into it by asking a question I'm pretty sure we've all felt the sting of at some point. Why does being left on red or ignored by a partner feel like a literal punch to the gut? Well, it turns out this isn't just you being overly sensitive. Not at all. Emotional neglect shares the exact same neural circuitry in our brains as actual physical pain. To your body, a lack of attention from someone you love registers as a full-blown biological threat response. But, to understand why our bodies react so intensely to modern digital silence, we actually have to rewind a few million years. Looking back, we see this major evolutionary split. Unlike our closest genetic relatives, chimpanzees and bonobos, who, by the way, do not form deep monogamous attachments, humans are biologically hardwired to pair bond. We naturally develop these deep emotional connections, characterized by affection, stability, and just this overriding desire to be near each other. But why? Why did the human lineage develop this totally unique trait around 2 million years ago? The answer comes down to something scientists call the obstructic dilemma. See, as our human ancestors started walking upright on two legs, our pelvises changed, which narrowed the birth canal. But at the exact same time, our brains were rapidly expanding. To solve this biological traffic jam, human babies just had to be born at a much earlier stage of development. In fact, when you compare us to other primates, human infants are born effectively 12 months premature. For their entire first year of life, they are essentially extrauterine fetuses, completely incapable of surviving on their own. Because they arrive so early, human babies are, let's face it, incredibly vulnerable. And not only that, but their massive, growing brains require a ridiculously calorie-rich diet. Unlike other apes that can just forage for themselves shortly after weaning, human children actually consume way more calories than they can provide for themselves for up to 18 years. Now, add in a short 3 to 4 year gap between births, and human mothers found themselves juggling multiple, highly dependent offspring all at once. To survive that, paternal investment, fathers sticking around to provide and protect, became an absolute matter of life and death. And you can see these exact evolutionary stakes in demographic data from the Ache hunter-gatherers in Paraguay. This chart shows the real-world impact of a father's presence. Look at this. When a father lived with the child, the mortality rate by age 15 was 20%. But if the father was absent due to death or divorce, that mortality rate more than doubled to 45%. Evolution absolutely needed a mechanism to keep parents together to make sure their kids actually survived to pass on their genes. But here's the thing, evolution rarely builds completely new biological systems from scratch. It's more of a tinkerer. It uses a process called exaptation. About 35 million years ago, mammals developed this powerful infant caregiver attachment system just to make sure mothers nurtured their babies. Then, around 2 million years ago, human evolution basically copy-pasted, or exapted, that exact same emotional bonding system and totally repurposed it to tie adult romantic partners together. So what does that mean for us? It means that the love you feel for a romantic partner operates on the exact same biological architecture as a mother's love for her child. It runs on a highly specific chemical cocktail: oxytocin, dopamine, and arginine vasopressin. These are the chemical systems that drive our desire for proximity, cause us genuine distress when we're separated, and allow us to use our partner as a safe haven in a really stressful world. Okay, so that's the ancient history, but how does this ancient biology play out in our modern, everyday lives? Well, it starts in our own childhoods. Psychiatrist John Bowlby discovered that our early interactions with our caregivers create what he called an internal working model. Think of it as a subconscious blueprint. Based on how reliably our parents met our needs back then, we make these deep-seated judgments about whether other people can be trusted, and honestly, whether we ourselves are even worthy of love. And that template follows us right into adulthood. Eventually, those childhood templates solidify into our adult attachment styles. Landmark research by Hazen and Shaver found that about 50% of adults are secure, meaning they're pretty comfortable with intimacy and they trust others. But then about 25% are avoidant, 20% are anxious, and 5% are disorganized, which means they both desire and fear closeness, often due to some kind of early trauma. Take a second to look at this breakdown. Where do you think you might fit in? If you don't happen to fall into that secure category, your brain basically uses different survival strategies whenever you feel disconnected. An anxiously attached person uses hyperactivating strategies. They crank the emotional volume all the way up, seeking constant reassurance and terrified of abandonment, because to them, a quiet environment feels unsafe. Conversely, an avoidantly attached person uses deactivating strategies. To avoid the pain of rejection they felt early in life, they withdraw. They suppress their emotional needs and highly value their independence, which can often make them appear cold or distant to their partner. All right, let's zoom all the way in. From the macro level of psychology right down to the microseconds of our daily lives. Relationship researcher John Gottman identified that the invisible currency of love is actually something called a bid. A bid is any attempt, a look, a touch, a heavy sigh, or even just saying, "Oh, I had the worst day," to gain your partner's attention, validation, or support. Now, why do these tiny, fleeting moments matter so much? Because they literally predict the future of your relationship. Gottman's research shows that couples with high relationship satisfaction respond to an incredible 86% of each other's bids. Meanwhile, couples with low satisfaction, who very often end up breaking up, respond to only 33%. Think about that. It is not how you handle major, explosive conflicts that dictates your relationship health. It's the accumulation of these small, everyday moments that build trust and safety over time. And there are exactly 3 ways you can respond when your partner makes a bid for your attention. You can turn toward them, which just means acknowledging them. Even a simple look up from your phone or making a little space on the couch totally counts. You can turn away, which means ignoring them, maybe because you're distracted or stressed out. Or third, you can turn against, which is a hostile or defensive reaction like snapping, "Can't you see I'm busy right now?" Now look, missing a bid here and there, totally normal. We're all stressed, we all get busy. But the danger really starts when bids are constantly missed, particularly for an anxious partner. Their attachment system just goes into massive hyperactivation. And this isn't just an emotional response, it's a physiological one. Their autonomic nervous system flares up, their vocal tension rises, which researchers can actually measure just by tracking voice pitch. And this chronic state of threat literally shuts down the prefrontal cortex. When that happens, empathy and problem solving become pretty much impossible. But when those bids are successfully met, it beautifully maps out the flow of a healthy relationship. It starts with predictors like mutual attraction and learning to rely on each other. If those go well, it builds the core features of a pair bond, seeking proximity and truly finding a safe haven in each other. And when that bond is secure, it naturally just flows right into relationship-protecting behaviors. Because here's the thing. Once a healthy pair bond forms, humans are actively wired to protect it. We naturally engage in biased cognitive processing. It's like a brain hack. We practice mate guarding to protect against rivals, and we actually engage in something called the derogation of alternatives, which means if you are highly committed, your brain literally processes other attractive people as less appealing. Crazy, right? You're also much more likely to forgive transgressions and make personal sacrifices just to ensure the relationship survives. But hearing all this might leave you wondering, if my childhood wired me with an insecure, anxious, or avoidant attachment style, and my brain is constantly scanning for threats that cause me to miss my partner's bids, am I just doomed? Am I doomed to repeat this cycle of disconnection and heartbreak forever? The good news is, absolutely not. Contemporary attachment research offers an incredibly hopeful finding. Thanks to neuroplasticity, our attachment styles are highly stable, yes, but they are not permanently fixed. You can achieve what psychologists call earned security. This means you can actively overwrite your old internal working models and develop a secure attachment orientation right now, in adulthood. So how do we actually pull this off and earn that security? Well, first, by experiencing a long-term relationship with someone who consistently provides the emotional responsiveness you might have lacked early on. Second, through attachment-based therapies like emotionally focused therapy, or EFT, which is amazing at helping you safely identify those missed bids we talked about. And third, through deliberate self-awareness. It's about learning to recognize your own physiological triggers so you can respond intentionally rather than just reacting defensively in the heat of the moment. We've traveled a long way today, from the survival pressures of human evolution 2 million years ago, right down to the text message sitting unread on your phone right now. You now know that connection isn't some nice-to-have luxury. It is a biological imperative wired deep into your nervous system. So I'm going to leave you with this provocative thought to take into the rest of your day. When your partner makes their very next subtle bid for your attention, will you turn toward them or will you turn away?